Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Smooth Precision Pens Smooth Bolt Action Pen version 2. First off though, actually a quick note. Who is Smooth Precision Pens and why does this look a lot like Urban Survival Gear's work? Well, Smooth Precision Pens are the same folks, right? It's Kelvin and the folks behind Urban Survival Gear. They have created a new company, Smooth Precision Pens. They are winding down Urban Survival Gear. This is the future of the company. This new brand, then this is their very, very first launch. But as a result, this guy was sent to me here by the manufacturer, by Kelvin and Smooth Precision Pens. He reached out to me actually well ahead of the launch, and in fact before the company even became public, and asked, hey Nick, I want to try and launch with a review. Would you be willing to do this? For them, for Kelvin, who generally has sent me very, very good work, I'm a big fan of their work generally, I did say yes. But they're a company that has earned that and is not going to make me, basically, there's not going to be much to be dishonest about because the work is generally speaking, very, very good. But nonetheless, I send him my full disclaimer on my website. I've told him I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk. He did still send this along. Nonetheless, we have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever because it is an early prototype, and I'm doing my best not to let any of this affect the nature or the quality of my review. There you go, full disclosure. Next thing, let's do a little bit of size comparison here. First, I'll go on ahead and I'll put it next to a ruler. What we're going to see here is that the overall pen is right around 13 centimeters, a little over 5.5 inches. I'm sorry, a little over 5 inches, that is. Slightly different thing there. And this is, by the way, the full-size version. There is also a mini version. Right, let's put it up against a couple of other standard pens. Here is a pen I stole from a Hampton Inn. Here is a Parker Jotter, and what we're going to see here is lengthwise a little longer than the Jotter. All things considered, here it is against a Bic Click Stick pen. Again, in a very similar kind of size category here. And let's see here. Then let's put it up against some of Urban Survival Gear's prior pens. Here it is against what in many ways was its spiritual predecessor. This is the Tie Scribe Bolt 2.0, and a very interesting pen from them, one of my favorites at the time. This is a much taller pen, right? Even though it's using a refill of the same size, this version is much, much shorter. Here it is against the Tie Scribe Bolt 3.0, which in many ways, there is a lot of similarity here, but this is kind of based more on the 2 than the 3 from the feels of it. But you can see here that this is actually thinner than the 3.0, as well as thinner than the Tie Scribe Go, which is this little guy right here, and also a little bit smaller than the Tie Scribe Go. Not by a whole lot, but it is a little tiny bit shorter there. So this is a relatively petite pen, all things considered, next to the other stuff they've got there. And like I said, this is a successor to their Tie Scribe lineup in many ways, and that's a beautiful thing. Now, one other thing that's worth noting is that you can buy the pen. Certainly, that's an option. You can buy the pen for $150, just to put a price out there at the very start. What you can also do is buy a kit. And this is the kit here. It just comes in a nice little box like this. And I'm sorry, I can't zoom in for a pen and out for a box, but I'll show you what's in the box here. Inside the box, you get 4 things. You get a leather notebook, you get a maintenance kit, you get the pen itself, it comes in this box, as well as some accessories. In this case, no accessories there. But what this comes with in this kit is a leather notebook here, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And it comes with this maintenance kit here as well. And we'll talk about both of those things here, well, shortly, frankly. But you can get this kit, all things together, for about $200, including the pen. And so, effectively, $50 gets you everything else here. So, there is that. And you know what? All things considered, yeah, sounds about right in terms of pricing. So, there is that. And then finally, as I mentioned, this is a prototype. They're going to change the engraving here so it is clocked to be in the same position as the clip. And also, the internal screw here that I'll show you in a bit will be Torx to match the top in the final versions. Those are the only differences, I'm told. So, let's go on ahead and talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little pen right here. So on the good side, to start with, we'll talk about the kit components, and they're actually pretty nice. This notebook here is, it's Smooth Precision Pens branded here. It comes with their notebooks. They sell refills for a pretty cheap price, right? And it's a fine little field note style notebook, along with a credit card holder sort of thing over here, as well as a little area you can either tuck the cover up into there or otherwise, but it's a nice little cover. But more importantly, if we look at the side of it here, it actually, it comes to a close at the bottom there, which means that you can put the pen into it, and it will slot all the way in. And one thing that's worth noting is your initial instinct is going to be to put the clip outside, but that's not what you do here. Instead, what's been done here is they've provided a little clip, or I'm sorry, a little hole basically for the clip to slide into. such that the pen, if you don't misthread it like I just did, the pen sits basically flush with the entire notebook here. It goes all the way in there, and it's very easy to get in and out of there. So it's a nice little deal. It's kind of got a feeling of, apparently it's crazy horse leather, which I hadn't heard of before. It feels a lot like kind of a Chrome Excel, although I don't think it is exactly Chrome Excel leather, but it's a nice little notebook. It works fine, and although I'm not a big pocket notebook person, this is a solid one of them. The other thing that comes with this guy is the maintenance kit here. So inside the maintenance kit, what you get are a screw, a screw head effective. Torx head. No, it's not even Torx. Good God, people. Anyways, you get this wrench, basically. It's a torque wrench as well as a bit. There you go. That's the term I was looking for. So you get these guys in there, and I'll show you how that works in a second. You get a spring as well as a pair of O-rings, and those O-rings are designed to replace these O-rings that live right about there. So there's that. And then you get your clip alignment tool. And what you do to use this guy, let's say down the road that I decided I wanted to take off this clip and replace it with something else, right? Or I overbent my clip accidentally. What I would do is I could take the pen in the part here, and then I take this little tool in here, and I put it inside, and I grip this clip holder tool here, and then I just, well, turn the screw in there. What that actually does is it frees up my pocket clip. My pocket clip is now free, and I can swap in another pocket clip, etc. There's just a little set screw going into the bottom of this guy here. And then when I want to put this guy back together, all I got to do is I slip the clip in here. I slip the whole situation back in here. And then I use this guy. And the cool thing about this is not just a screwdriver. This is a torque wrench. So what you're going to see here, what you're going to hear more accurately, is I'm going to get into the screw, and then I'm going to start turning. I'm going to start twisting. And at a certain point, you're going to hear it click. When it clicks, that is the intended behavior. That means I have put the proper amount of torque onto that screw, and now my clip is held very, very firmly in place. I've not over-torqued it, I've not under-torqued it, it is just torqued as it should be. And now the clip is back in there. Is that necessary? No, probably not. In fact, I've done clip replacements on the other Urban Survival Gear pens, on their pens. Same company. Dude, it's the same people. But anyways, I've done that on other pens without it, but it is a very nice thing, and it makes it a little bit more, straightforward to use. Like I said, in the final version, this is going to be Torx instead, but nonetheless, there you go. So the kit components are nice. Good God, I'm only 7 minutes in. Yikes. Okay, next up, this is made here in the US of the A. And in fact, if we look at the very bottom of the clip here, I'll see if I can zoom in here. What you're going to see there is made in Texas. This pen here is made entirely in Texas, as Urban Survival Gear stuff has been throughout. And that's a beautiful thing. But the journal in the base kit actually is made in China, though. This is something that they said, simply put, they just couldn't find an American maker to make enough of them to suit all of the supply. However, they are going to have a Made in the USA journal option available at some additional and, frankly, understandable cost. And I think that's a great move, right? I mean, quality, of course, is about effort, not geography. And the built-in journal is quite nice. But this allows folks who want to support American companies all the way, want to buy an American pen, American journal, etc. It gives people who want to support American leatherworkers a way to put their money where their mouth is and to get the same kit experience while they still follow principles that they may hold dear, right? And yet it allows Smooth Precision to buy in the quantities they need for folks to whom that's not important, right? So I think that's a really nice approach, right? Making the pen in the States is a beautiful thing, and offering an option for the journal in the States, even better. So that's great. Next thing, this has 2 sizes at launch here. I'll see if I can find 2 other Urban Survival Gear pens in the 2 sizes. Yeah, here we go. These are prior generation, but this will give you a sense of the relative size difference here. This is the full size, and this here is the mini. The full size here takes a Pilot G2 refill, or you can actually use a Mont Blanc cartridge if you'd like, with a little bit of hacking. There are some other cartridges in that size class. The mini size works with a Parker-compatible cartridge. And I'm sure that, so that's a nice thing, right? You can choose your favorite cartridge and buy a pen accordingly. There are also going to be other materials available, which is a beautiful thing. Kelvin mentioned Zirc being on the menu. And of course, Urban Survival Gear had a huge number of different metals in use, so I figure they'll probably make their way back into circulation. Next thing, I continue to like this approach, right? The clip here, this is a bolt action style pen, which means that when the clip, when in this case the bolt or the clip is all the way in, the pen is not. But if I push it forward a little bit, then the pen comes out. This is very straightforward. It can be used completely silently. Listen. I mean, that's functionally silent, even if you hear a little bit, and that'll get quieter over use, right? But it can also be very fidgety, right? This can be a very fidgety pen if that's a thing that you want. But it's very easy to use, right? You pull this out of the pocket, and it's very, very easy to get this in the right position, get it open. It's as easy to use as any kind of clicky pen, so it's great, right? But it continues to be a very nice action and to work very, very well, right? It's pretty foolproof, which I appreciate very much. Next thing, this has very, very nice details. I already showed off the Made in Texas underclip engraving, which I think is a beautiful thing. But more importantly, you get some other nice details. So for instance, if we look at the top cap right here, what we're going to see is first off, a little O-ring there to keep things in place, which is beautiful. Then we get some very nice threading. Then we have this little area right. Well, here I'll gesture with the tip of the pen here, this little area right here. Not only is that separately engraved with smooth precision pens on it, which that's a little extra, but we also see there's a flat area right here. And what that means is that it is very, very easy. In fact, it is damn near impossible to cross-thread this guy, to put this in at an angle, right? Those little bits of smoothness make sure that everything's at the proper angle to insert the tip, making this, again, even less maintenance, worrying. It also has these very nice rings here, which give you a little bit of gription, but by no means are they sharp, and they're nicely polished in there, too. You get the top cap on here, which hopefully is visible. Yeah, there you go. Smooth precision pens. Little torques in there. And again, they're going to have that so that it's clocked to face the clip on future versions, apparently, which is a little extra. It is also, on the tip itself, it's worth noting that the tip is machined, right, to make sure that you have a precision fit around the G2 refill here. There is very, very little wiggle, if any. I don't know if I'm detecting wiggle here or not. But anyways, it is very, very nicely fit to the end right there. That's a beautiful thing. It also has a just beautiful, beautiful engraving right here, right? This is smooth precision. It says smooth V2 number 1 2022. So not only is the pen itself dated, but you have a version very quickly. And this makes it very easy for you to tell if this pen right here, like if you're down the road, you want to order a replacement clip. And by the way, this is reverse compatible with old clips from the TiScribe TiScribe Go series, which is a beautiful thing. But if you want to order something down the road, you will always know exactly what version you have because it says right there. That's a nice little detail there, I gotta say. So those are some very nice details generally, and it's very clear that, as usual, Kelvin has been overthinking this pen. Next thing, the dimensions on this guy are just a little bit nicer, right? It is a little bit thinner than the TiScribe Go was, which, this wasn't a massive pen, but the little bit of extra thinness is nice. It's also a little bit shorter than the V2, as I mentioned. Let me pull the V2 up. It's around here somewhere. I just had it literally. Okay, come on, people. There we go. We can see here that it is actually substantially shorter than the V2, and it is even a little bit shorter than the Go in the full-size version, and so, you know what? That's nice. I gotta say, I appreciate a nice short pen. That works very, very well, and the thinner body on it is great, too. It just works very well, and the pen, as a result, writes beautifully. Right? Let me grab my little notebook here. Come here, little notebook, and I can write, for instance, right here. Hey, everybody. There you go. And see, it just writes beautifully. It has a very nice balance to it. It just feels great in the hand. I would say it's just, and it carries small. It's just a nice set of dimensions. And of course, this guy has all the smoothness and all the fit and finish of any of the work that we've seen out of Urban Survival Gear and Kelvin in the past, right? Smooth precision pens is about as good a branding as you could expect for these folks because these are precise, these are smooth, and they are indeed pens. So that kind of tracks, right? Then finally, there are lots of improvements all around, right? I've been talking about different improvements all throughout this, but every time the work gets a little bit better, right? The height above, if we look from the clip, the bottom of the clip to the top of the thing, it continues to shrink down a little bit. Everything just seems to get a little bit nicer each time this happens, a little bit smoother, a little bit better engraved. There is just constant iteration, and that means that every time you buy one, it's going to be a little bit better, and that's great. This is no exception, but that's something I very much like to see, and I think it's one of the things Smooth Precision Pens now does better than anything else. So to me, all of that is the good. It's that it has lots of improvements relative to prior models, and I mean, come on, if we look, for instance, at the V2, I hadn't handled the V2 in probably a few months before writing up this review, and then I took this out, and it was just like, this was a good pen. This was one of my favorites. This was a gem back in the day. This is an entirely different class of pen. Like, it is so clear to me that Kelvin has done so much growing, has done so much improving, This is just a whole different beast than this guy is. Just, yeah, so the improvement is a constant thing. There's all the smoothness, fit, and finish of any of the kind of pens we've seen out of these folks. The dimensions are a little smaller, more efficient for the refill. It's got some nice details. It continues to be both silent and fidgety. No doubt we'll have other materials. We got at least 2 sizes at launch. It's made in the USA, and the kit, as well as the components in the kit, are quite nice. That's a neat little approach. To me, though, on the great side is the modularity and the repairability, right? So it's one thing to have companies that sell the parts that you need to fix the pen, right? That's a nice thing, right? Oh, yeah, you can buy a spring, you can buy an O-ring, etc. That's good. But it's another thing to include these by default, right? This little spring here is not a captive spring, right? This could roll off and fall onto something if you take your pen apart out there in the wild, so to speak. And as a result, all you got to do is, well, when you get home, put this guy back in, right? You get the other spring. And he's willing to sell more if you need. But similarly, if the O-ring breaks, you get spare O-rings, right? If you need to take the thing apart, you have not only a screwdriver that's able to do it, but you have one that's able to do it precisely correctly with the number, with the amount of torque that is needed, right? This is a pen that shouldn't need repair. I mean, to be clear, I have owned some Urban Survival Gear pens for many years and had no issues with them. But at the same time, this makes it clear that you absolutely can repair any element you need. And you can also, it just makes it easier to carry it, to use it, to beat it up. You gouge your clip or something. Then suddenly, you know what? You just buy a new clip, you swap it in there. It's easy. It's good to go, right? And you can just keep your pen in great shape. So from a right to repair perspective, I absolutely love that. But the other thing it allows is modularity, right? You can take this clip off of any pen out there from Urban Survival Gear, right? I think any of the Tie Scribe Go series, certainly. And if you bought like a fancy Time Ascus clip, you can put that on there. Or in the future, you might decide, you know what, I love this pen, but I want to dress it up a little bit. So you get a new, cap for it or a new clip for it or something like that. That's a really cool thing, right? And this allows you, with the version numbering, to know exactly what's going to work and what's not going to work. And with this kit, you are prepared to upgrade, to change, to modify, to improve. And, it's very clear, looking at the kit, looking at everything, that they're not trying to make a pen. They're making an ecosystem here. It kind of feels like they're doing the Apple thing a little bit, right? But instead of being the Apple thing, where it's like, we're going to lock you in using software to our system, here he's just like, we're going to give you really good pens and really good tools and, the ability to maintain them, and you'll stay on your own. And that's a beautiful thing. That's way better than the Apple thing. But the idea being that you got your favorite pen with lots of variations regularly available, all sharing the same tools, ideas, parts, ethos, from, exchangeability. And if you get bored with your pen, you put in the different clip and suddenly it's a new pen for a little while. And you can buy something new while retaining what's great from your existing setup. And this all naturally feeds into a kind of collector's club mentality, which is, I think, good for the consumer. And frankly, having all the reparability, having all the exchangeability rather than constantly selling no, that's kind of a beautiful thing for the environment too. And so to me, all of that is the great. The idea of a modular pen where you are able to swap things in and out to make it new and fancy and feel different, even while maintaining the same tool that's been working well for you, as well as the idea that it makes the pen incredibly repairable with, all the tools included precisely as they need to be. That's great to me, and that is the great. For many people, it might actually be the smoothness or the improvements, but for me, that feels like what's great and what's new about this guy. On the bad side, there's really not much bad. I mean, they've gone so far as to address, for instance, the fact that the tumbling media weren't getting into this little gap here. They've gone so far as to address that in the new version, right? So there's a much smaller patch where that is, but there are still a couple of little issues, right? One of them is that this design is getting to be a little long in the tooth here, right? This is a new version of an old design, and so as a result, we've seen this kind of thing from Urban Survival Gear a bunch. This is a very safe kind of thing, and it's a good design, right? It works, but I hope that there's some exotic stuff coming soon, right? I've been loving this guy right here. This is the Hexed model from them, and I'm kind of hoping that we see some neat stuff like this coming out of coming out of Smooth Precision pens relatively soon. I think for existing fans of Kelvin's work, they might want something a little more unique and novel to dive into the brand new brand with, rather than getting what is a great new version of a pen that they probably already have. So I'd like to see a little bit more in the way of design diversity in the future, but I have no doubt that that's coming. It is still, if there is one big downside to this kind of design, it is that the pen is relatively prominent above the clip, right? This sits in your pocket with this much additional length, and that's fine in many situations, right? If you just have this clipped to the pocket of your jeans, it works just fine, gives you plenty to grab with. But if you are wearing a shirt, for instance, that has a fold-over flap or something like this is going to stick up a little bit more than something where the clip is right at the top, right? You know, it's not a huge deal, but it is something that you might want to consider, and is a downside of this approach over other ones. Then finally, on the bad side, this is not a cheap pen, right? $150 is not cheap at all. It's a very nice pen. It's very well done. It's made in the States, but $150 is a good chunk of change, and especially you throw the kit in, you're up to $200. Both of these are more expensive than the base model Tie Scribe Go was, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, it's a better pen than the Go was, and it's made in the States. It counts for something. But I do hope that Smooth Precision Pens has some more budget-friendly options in the pipe. This is a fine pen at $150, but for a lot of people, any pen at $150 is not a good idea, or at least isn't possible. So, or would take a lot of saving. So I hope that they've got some budgety stuff coming in the works, and to me, that's what's bad here, right? It's not cheap, although it's very good. It is still relatively prominent above the clip here, if you wear shirts that kind of fold over the top there. And this design is very safe for for Smooth Precision pens. But I hope they do some exotic stuff to bring it together in the future. There is nothing ugly here at all, so let's go into the final conclusion, and that is, honestly, this is kind of a welcome rebirth, right? You know, when I first got this from Kelvin and I saw the Smooth Precision Pens branding, it was like, oh, that's smart. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Right? Because Urban Survival Gear, it's probably my favorite pen maker at this point in time before, and this feels like the right evolution. It highlights their strengths, that is, making smooth precision pens without the tactical trappings that honestly never really seem to fit the brand that well. Right? Like Urban Survival Gear sounds like they make grappling hooks and tactical tomahawks rather than really nice pens. And I think this really gets at who they are a little bit better, and I think the whole idea of doing the kit, of doing sort of an ecosystem, but not the kind that traps you, but the kind that just goes, hey, it's really nice here, you should stick around. That's a beautiful thing, right? Having the kit, having the modularity, having a collector's clubby sort of thing, it's a neat plan, and I hope it works well for him. But you're here to hear about the pen, and the pen is great, right? Because it's built in the States. It's got two sizes, more material heading down the way, no doubt. It's silent, but it's fidgety, with nice details, good dimensions, smoothness, precision, fit and finish that we've come to expect out of these folks, iteration that leads to constant improvements, and a great approach to repair, upgrade, and modularity. Yes, it's a safe design to launch, which I hope they follow with something a bit more daring. It's still relatively tall above the clip, and it is definitely not cheap, even though it is quite nice. But my final conclusion? This is a very nice pen. This is also very boring as a conclusion, given that it's what happens when you take a very nice pen and you mix it with a very nice pen, and then you make some improvements relative to those other two very nice pens. Yes, that will result in something that is very nice overall, right? And in fact, I would go so far as to say that this is the best pen that this team of folks have ever made. It's not the fanciest or the nicest, which I would say maybe still goes to the Hext, but at the same time, functionally, and in terms of finish quality, in terms of all the little details, this is the best one they've made, and thus, it is quite obviously a gem. And I would go so far as to say this is one of the nicest everyday carry pens on the market here today. It is really, really well done. It's beautiful. It's smooth. They have just done everything right here, and they seem to be constantly trying to improve from there too. And given that this is the very start of what Smooth Precision Pens is planning to do, and given that there's a long history of gems coming out of these folks before, I imagine that Smooth Precision Pens will be precisely the choice for a lot of folks in the everyday carry pen world. Hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. That final transition would have been smoother had I not screwed it up. All right. Don't penalize me. Bye now.